Today, I want to tell you about one of my most extreme experiences that has transformed and liberated me so enormously and also equipped me with new, deeper insights and knowledge that I could never have imagined before. And I spent exactly 30 days in the Amazon, deep in the jungle with shamans. And what exactly happened and the incredible experiences and intense processes I went through, I will delve into here. It's a very exciting topic. Stay tuned. My name is Ralph Riedel, following the shamanic path for almost 20 years, and am part of the tradition of the Incas and the tradition of the Blackfoot. I took this journey in 2022 and felt the call to go to the Shipibo shamans, who were known for their legendary abilities to free us from these heavy energies already 6 months prior. Yes, and to open our hearts to love as well. And of course, I was also very curious to see how the shamans work there, to really experience it firsthand indeed. And at that time, I just felt such a really huge blockage within me, where I realized that with my conventional methods, I just couldn't get deep enough, and I decided that I truly needed help. At that exact time, I was exactly attached to these two strong energies. On one hand, there was the longing to finally be freed from these heavy and deeply rooted blockages. And on the other hand, I was also very afraid of what awaited me there, because in my heart I already felt that something big could indeed be changed. And it always sounds so easy at first, but at the same time, the mind also rebels indeed. In between, fears and anxiety came up, real severe panic attacks, even to the point of breaking out in a sweat with wet and trembling hands. But that was completely normal because I was already familiar with that feeling. Because during the vision quest or on other trips to Peru, that was indeed just the normal process. And here's a note. If, for example, you are indeed interested in a shamanic session or the shamanic path, then this energy is certainly already active even before you have fully made the decision. That means inside you, on one hand, you have feelings that rebel, that are afraid, and try to convince you not to do it. And on the other hand, you also feel the call within you that it is now time to go deeper, either to pursue healing or to connect more deeply with your heart. And that is completely normal at this point. If you also definitely decide to go deeper on such a path, this is indeed the normal process that takes place at the beginning. At first, I really thought I was coming from the normal world and now diving into a new world. But after just 3 days, when I arrived in the dense, humid jungle, I felt like I was walking through a thick, heavy curtain. After those 3 days, and had finally arrived. I could really feel, and I also knew that I had just now arrived in the real world. And originally, what I had understood as normal came from an artificially created world, which is actually a deception that we mistake for reality. I could definitely, absolutely, truly feel it. And I was also so touched by the jungle sounds, which really started to come alive in the evening and began to practically pulsate. I always say, nestled deep within the heart of Mama Selva or Mother Jungle, I was able to participate in 8 unbelievably intense and different healing ceremonies. And it is said that the Shipibo shamans possess the strongest medicine of the jungle. By the strongest medicine, they indeed mean ayahuasca. And with their sacred songs, the so-called ikarus, they manage to remove blockages and create a field of love that is high vibrational energies, so that when you stay in this sacred presence for an extended period of time, harmony is indeed ultimately and automatically restored in body, mind, and soul. Ayahuasca means the vine of the soul or the vine of death, and it is also called divine medicine. All terms are indeed correct, as this medicine truly empowers us to dive deeper and to free ourselves from these heavy energies. It can happen that these fears, these blockages indeed come up massively, and you may feel like you are dying. That's why it's called the vine of death, because many people undergo a transformation through this ego death. So many people definitely have to go through this process first. And I had to go through it too. And that's exactly what really scared me so much at the very beginning. And I really, truly thought at first, what have I really gotten myself into? Now I'm here in the dense jungle, and I sincerely hope I can handle it. Yes, with this fear and excitement, I would describe it as such. I spent the first 3 days in the jungle before anything even started, looking around and then being able to calm myself down a bit. What exactly happens during the ceremony? When we actually take ayahuasca, the active ingredient DMT is released in the body. DMT is also called the so-called divine molecule, where we can indeed successfully manage to travel to the highest states of consciousness or elevate ourselves and thereby immerse into a truly divine state of omnipotence and all-encompassing love, as I would describe it. But on the other hand, of course, we are confronted with exactly what stands in our way of being able to dive in. And what has scared me so far is that you never know which issues might become active within you. That's why it's very important to have the willingness to truly and deeply surrender to this process, to truly commit to it wholeheartedly, to open up and to trust this medicine. Yes, and in my humble and considered opinion, that's the hardest part at the very beginning, to completely let go and relinquish control, and then to confidently step into the deep and primal trust that what is happening here is truly good. And I had already participated in several different ceremonies before this one and knew that I could be confronted with really intense processes and very heavy emotions. So real horror scenarios can come into existence in various ways. That's indeed also why I still have such great respect and previously had this fear as well. But I knew I needed help. I just couldn't manage to break through these blockages on my own. And I was also looking forward to experiencing the effects of the Shibibu shamans firsthand, hoping to learn a thing or two for myself. Yes, and it was with this intention that I embarked on the journey. Yes, and in this healing retreat, I was treated with the traditional medicine of the Shibibu shamans. And it consists of a specific diet called a dieta, where you fast with a traditional healing plant specifically prescribed to you by the shaman after the first ceremony. And for me, it was, for example, Bobinsana, which is very much associated with heart opening, with the connection to the divine world or the spiritual world, so that these gateways can open further as such a ceremony can unfold. First, you focus on why you want to do this ceremony. What is the reason for the healing you need, or perhaps for new messages, or maybe a new direction in your life if you feel lost. So most people often come to such retreat centers with these issues and concerns, and you must not eat anything for 5 hours beforehand. You should also follow a 14-day diet prior to that, eating as little or no meat as possible and keeping your meals light. These are the general conditions. And in the evening, it always usually started at around 7:30 p.m. when it was really dark. Then we would meet in the maloka. That means it is indeed the ceremonial hut where these ceremonies take place. And I would just like to interject something here. That means first the medicine is blessed and the space is set up to ensure it is protected. Yes, and I would like to show here what the blessing of a medicine can look like. And here you see Don Arturo, who also allowed me to film this beforehand. This means that here he is blessing the ayahuasca before the ceremony begins. And then everyone gets about half a shot glass of this medicine. If you want, you can also drink a whole glass. And after about 45 minutes, it starts to take effect, approximately. And this effect was so strong for me, so incredibly strong, that at the beginning, I felt complete fear, complete panic, and I became short of breath. I thought I couldn't take it because it was so intense. And then, of course, the first thoughts that shot through my head were that it was a mistake and now I'm going to die. And I knew that I had to learn to absolutely and entirely surrender to this medicine completely, without resistance and with full trust. And then I tried to focus on breathing more calmly, as much as I could possibly manage. And then it got somewhat better, though it was still incredibly intense, a bit more. Yes, and then the shamans indeed began to sing their ikarus, their sacred songs and chants. So in this case, it was actually Don Arturo and Don Walter, or Walter, yes. And that was really so intense for me. You can imagine the shamans come around in turns and sing for you personally. Then you should sit down on your mat where you are lying, and then he sings for you personally. And I could really feel how the blockages were really being released from my body piece by piece through these chants. And it was such an immensely powerful and overwhelming presence emanating from the shaman that I couldn't bear it at all. I wanted to run away immediately, leave the room as fast as I could, because it was so incredibly overwhelming and intense for me. From my current perspective, I can say that it wasn't me who couldn't endure it, but rather my blockage. That is what had been activated and created a feeling in me of not really wanting to truly endure it at all. Because a few ceremonies and rituals later, when my blockages were completely and thoroughly removed, I found these chants beautiful and enchanting, to linger in the loving, powerful, and mystical presence of these shamans. And only then did I realize that this blockage reacts so strongly that we believe it is ourselves in that moment. But in truth, it is the blockage within ourselves that creates this feeling. That's why the shamans there say that the medicine, in this case ayahuasca, shows exactly what is indeed active in our consciousness, no more, no less. And I would like to show you how such a ceremony in the jungle can take place. I was allowed to film this sequence where no ceremony was actually happening, but I set it up similarly to how it would be if participants were there, so you can get an idea of what it might feel like. And now, here.
Ni vun tôn tri cư ya son cư ya yon ta na rai cư ya ina ta na cư ya ina ta na con ni ki ni da ini kanu mayon son sana pada mayon son kanu mayon ta na Kaya ina tanada ini kakita soi kano mayoton masa kano mayoton ibu kaya ina.
Then the diet. That means I took my medicine here, in this case bobinsana, and also had to inhale it because these blockages were so deeply embedded in my system that work had to be done on different levels simultaneously. And we also receive rape every morning. It's basically the sacred tobacco that you inhale through your nose, like snuff, yes. It liberates us and essentially opens our third eye more. As a result, we have more clarity and greater access to our intuitive knowledge and understanding, which has often been lost. After the first ceremony, it was so intense for me that I thought, what have I gotten myself into? There's no way I can handle 8 ceremonies. This is so extreme. Man. And then the ceremonies continue. Thank God it was like that, without knowing beforehand that the medicine builds upon itself. That means the issues resolved in the previous ceremony, which was held last week. And at the point where you were basically at the end of this ceremony, that's where the second ceremony continues and continues and continues. So these 8 ceremonies essentially keep building on each other. Thus, you free yourself more and more from these heavy energies and become lighter and lighter. And on the other hand, you gain more and more access to your heart, resting more in love, in the all-encompassing divine love, in your inner essence, in your soul, where you have arrived and are embedded in the midst of nature. After these 8 ceremonies, I realized that I had gained a new and profound connection to myself and the surrounding energies of nature. I also activated new pathways for my shamanic work, which has been incredibly transformative and enlightening. And as a result, I was able to perceive the energies in a completely different way, really deepen my understanding. It's all hard to put into words. And even my healing chants, which I also use in my shamanic sessions, have deepened significantly and immensely. And this living knowledge, because I have experienced it myself, is also what I now teach others on one hand. And of course, it also flows into my mentoring here. And each and every ceremony was so incredibly intense and overwhelming that it would be far too much to go into great detail about each and every one of them right now. But I can say that they indeed built upon each other, and that the initial fear, almost panic, initially changed. And then in the end, I actually even looked forward to the ceremonies. Nevertheless, I was always full of great respect and humility because I never knew what would ultimately come. And it also became incredibly clear to me that there are much stronger and powerful energies and entities in ways that I had never imagined before I had the chance to experience this. Also, the astonishing and truly incredible presence that people, in this case shamans, are absolutely capable of activating was indescribable to me. And then being taught, you can imagine it not like a teacher standing in front of you explaining something and you truly understand it, but rather that you immerse yourself deeper into the living experiences in a way that fully and completely engages you. So you really, truly, deeply and profoundly experience it. And as a result, your consciousness is so incredibly and remarkably positively transformed that you can access this new awareness forever afterward, allowing you to return as a new person. What was also a big lesson for me was that I could learn what it really means to indeed let go of your ego, to completely let go of your personal ego, to truly and utterly let go of your self-awareness, so that when you work as a shaman, you can fully be available as a tool and allow these respective energies, healing energies, or the connection with nature to work through you, to step aside and be part of this creative divine plan. This significantly and immensely amplifies the healing energy, as I have observed here. Because after this retreat, after these 30 days when I came back, all my sessions had an enormously different impact. Even though I did the same things, but I was able to activate this deeper access within myself. Or maybe I was more rooted in my heart, in love. Yes, and this new awareness flows into all of my work. That's why it's hard to always say what exactly I have learned. I can simply say that I have immersed myself in a new state of consciousness, from which I can operate in a completely different way. Once I had deeper access to the energies and vibrations, once I learned to completely and utterly step out of the ego, the self-centered mindset, and simply be a tool to be part of the creative cosmic plan. During these ceremonies, I also had the impression that when these sacred Icaros were sung, it was as if the jungle joined in with its sounds, exactly in tune with the Icaros or vice versa, and together they formed a beautiful symphony of creation and sounds harmoniously. I really had the impression that it was as if angelic choirs from the jungle were amplifying the whole experience enormously. It was indescribable. During all these various ceremonies, I was also shown different and unique worlds. I also had contact with and interacted with various entities and gained a living access to a variety of this new shamanic knowledge or state of consciousness, and I describe it as if a gate in my consciousness opened in a manner that I now have permanent access, permanently. It also became more apparent to me that a shaman is indeed always both a teacher and always a student at the same time. And for this reason, even very advanced shamans regularly undergo such healing ceremonies, often with other shamans. or they do regular dietas where they go directly into the jungle and are taught and healed by the plants. I also had the opportunity to conduct an insightful interview with Arturo, where it was explained to me what the traditional path of a shaman entails and detailed. These shamans work with many various plants and are directly taught by the plants themselves. And the shaman with whom you essentially enter the void just holds the space and monitors you to ensure everything is all right with you. And then you can discuss this particular lesson with him once more. But the real teachers are indeed the plants. During this time, I was introduced to 15 different plants, each of which is also considered a teacher by every shaman there. And they work meticulously with just one specific plant, dedicating either 4 or 8 months to its care, depending on the plant's needs and growth conditions. Then you can figure out how long it takes to really work through all the plants and thoroughly gain a deeper understanding of them, really. Because it always depends on when a plant opens up to you. And there are also indeed shy plants, as it was explained to me, that need more time to open up, so that the spirit of the plant reveals itself to the respective shaman. And when this spirit reveals itself, it appears similar to a person whom you can actually see physically and with whom you can actually converse. And that's why such training lasts at least 10 or even 20 years and is often passed down from father to son because it is so extremely intensive. After these 30 days, I can now say that I feel truly honored and incredibly blessed at the same time to have had such a deeply profound and intense experience that has changed my life in ways I couldn't even comprehend, truly, deeply, and profoundly. Because then we come to the next point. After that, there is also an integration phase, which is also extremely important. That means, depending on how intense your healing was, if we consider it as healing or reorientation, the more important it is to implement it in your life afterward, to integrate your new awareness into your life. It takes at least half a year or even several years to truly and completely integrate all of the incredibly intense experiences you have in such an intense and deeply healing retreat. That's why it's absolutely essential and important for everyone to take sufficient enough breaks in order to integrate these new impulses, insights, or this awareness into their lives. Yes, those were my thoughts on this topic, and if you liked this video, feel free to share it with others or pass it along. And if you want more insights or a glimpse into my daily routines, just follow me on Instagram. The link is in the description below. See you next time. Bye. Ciao. Goodbye.